The views and opinions expressed in this recording do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Logan City Council. Logan City Council does not make any representation of the accuracy of any such views and opinions.
Welcome to this podcast, one of a number on the Logan City Council Library's website. Recorded in front of a live audience, today's conversation is with Walter Mikac. Walter has been in the national public arena for over 20 years and is a familiar face on TV and radio and in newspapers. Through sheer grit and determination, he has managed to turn an immeasurable heartbreak in his life into an amazing legacy. It has earned him at this year's recent Australia Day celebrations an appointment as a member of the Order of Australia for his many years of service to the nation in protecting children and as a gun control advocate. Walter is the co-founder and patron of the Alannah and Madeline Foundation, which is a national charity advocating for the safety and well-being of children. This year marks its 21st anniversary. To date, the foundation has assisted more than 2 million children and their families from violence and bullying through its high-profile advocacy, care and prevention programs. Letters of Love was created by Walter to mark the 20th anniversary of the foundation. The letters are from more than 50 well-known Australians. Everyone, please welcome Walter. Walter, congratulations on your recent appointment.
Thank you.
It's so well deserved, but I wondered, what was it like when you first heard that you had been nominated?
Came as a bit of a shock, really. I got a letter saying that you're being considered for the award, and you'll get. That was a letter from Government House, so you always know that it's something important. It's an invitation or something. So, it's not something you ever set out to think that's you'll achieve that, but it has been a long road. It's been a long battle. It's been, gun laws in the early days, and then with the foundation helping children who've through cyberbullying and the programs that the Alannah and Madeline Foundation runs has been it's been a long and sometimes tumultuous journey.
And did you have to attend a ceremony?
That's coming up, I think, in March or April at Government House in Sydney. So
fantastic.
I was lucky enough to go to Government House before Christmas when I took my parents there, and it is amazing. It's like it's got the Opera House in the backyard, and the gardens are just magnificent. So I look forward to that.
And does it mean you're going to be even busier this year going forward?
There's always events happening. It's sometimes hard to predict. I mean, even last week, we had pretty well the whole week on the Sunrise program where they talked about beating the bullies and running the the Foundation's eSmart program in all schools in Australia. So, if that eventuates, that could have a big impact on what I need to do over the year.
Talking about the Alannah and Madeline Foundation, just for people in the room and for our podcast, can you let us know a little bit about the work that Alannah and Madeline Foundation does?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the very essence and the beginning of it it started as a result of a letter I received from a dad in Melbourne who had daughters the same age as Alannah and Madeline were at the time. And he said, look, why don't you set up an organisation that's going to help other children who have suffered from violence or from loss? And that's how it began. And so from very humble beginnings, the first meeting was in my parents' lounge room with some friends of ours who are also involved at Port Arthur. It just grew, and we had a lot of high-profile business people in Melbourne came on board. Neil Mitchell, who's the main morning talk show person, has been probably our champion as far as that goes over the whole journey. And so it's really evolved over that period of time because, you wouldn't have predicted 20 years ago that our main focus would be bullying as a result of, of the internet. That's really just evolved over time. So our focus was mainly in schools, and it's mainly we have a buddy bear program where you have an older child looking after a younger child, and now we've got an eSmart program, which is an educational program for students, teachers, and parents, which educates about the internet and how to use it safely.
Fantastic. Logan City Council Libraries is part of the eSmart program. We were the first library service in 2015 here in Queensland to become part of the eSmart program, and I gather that there's now 75% of libraries throughout Australia who are part of the eSmart program.
Yeah, well, I think as far as public libraries, we're now 100% funded, so that it's available in all public libraries. So that in itself is fantastic. So, children can go there even if it's not accessible at school and actually do it. So what happens is, it's ideally centred towards kids in grade 6. They go through the program and they then get what's called a digital licence, and the digital licence means that they've completed all the little modules, that their parents have had a look at it and are also aware of the places that that can be dangerous and all the threats that while the internet is incredibly powerful, it's also incredibly powerful as far as the negative things that can happen as a result of it.
Going back to you saying the foundation started in your parents' lounge room, I was really blown out by the different patrons, the people who have supported the foundation over the years. Could you tell us about some of the foundation patrons?
Sure. Well, I mean, we were fortunate that when we started the foundation, John Howard agreed to be our national patron, and so as a result of that, we've had the standing Prime Minister be the national patron all the way through. So we've already had about, I think we're on to number 5, 6. So that in itself gives a lot of credibility and also a lot of some clout to be able to get some of the things done. But when we've had fantastic support from all kinds of people, like in the early days, we had Steve Vizard. He was very prominent in the media then, and he dedicated his boardroom to us. We started off with really we had no funding. We've not had funding other than to run things like the eSmart program. So I sometimes have to pinch myself that in 20 years we've gone from this little embryo of an idea of helping children to running all these programs, hopefully in the eSmart right across Australia, and we've got Princess Mary as our international patron. So that has been a really incredible thing. So 2006 she came as a result of John Bertrand, who was our chairman of our board, was racing with Prince Frederick in Sydney, and obviously suggested to Princess Mary that being a Tasmanian, it would be a good fit to be involved. And we have been very fortunate because we are the only charity outside of Denmark that she support, and it did take a long time because I think it took them about 3 or 4 months of due diligence before the royal family agreed to allowing her to do that. So and they run the Buddy Bear program in all the kindergartens, in Denmark, in Greenland, and the other Danish territory. So it's pretty amazing, and they've actually done some modifications to it as well, whereby they actually do massage the children in their classes, actually massage each other. So that the idea behind that was, the idea behind that was that if you care for someone, that you're not going to hurt them, and you're not going to be mean to them, and you're not going to bully them. So I was pretty impressed when I saw the way they run that.
You've also got some really young people on board in the foundation.
We have.
Yeah, and some of those I think are here.
We have, that's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's quite a few of our ambassadors, patrons are in there. Mel Doyle, who's been a staunch advocate since she's been on board for about 3 or 4 years. She's excellent. There's a young girl called Caitlin Ferrugia who lives in Canberra, who's pretty amazing. She's only 21, I think. John Caldwell, who's in the media and is on Studio 10, on Channel 10. So yeah, we're fortunate that we've got this diversity, and it's good because, I mean, the way I see it is there will be a point where I can just hand over, and it's gone from my generation to the next, and it has a life of its own, and it'll be here like long after I'm gone.
Oh, that's beautiful. So from little things, big things grow.
Yep.
So going into the future in your lifetime, I know you love to think, to dream big. Is there any plans going forward to take over the world with the eSmart program?
Well, when John Bertrand, he was our chairman for 10 years. The thing that when we created the eSmart, and we had a lot of academics and a lot of people involved from all different fields, from psychology and learning, to create it. Our thought was we'd love to present it to the United Nations in 10 years as world's best practice. So I would love to think that that is possible, probably now in 4 or 5 years. I mean, if it's running in all schools in Australia, that will be the catalyst for that to happen, I think. So, and as we talked about, it's already in the libraries. So,
exactly.
It's difficult for people to know how to deal with the internet if they haven't got the knowledge. Once you've got the knowledge, then it's your decision as to how you use it. So, I think that's the important thing.
Thanks, Walter. Now, the reason we're here today is your beautiful book. But before we get on to Letters of Love, I wanted to know a little bit about, had you had any previous experience in writing before you tackled creating this book?
Well, I have written, I've been involved in 3 other books before that. But previous to that, no. I mean, I loved English at school and did like writing, but I mean, the original book that I wrote, which is called after Port Arthur, which is called To Have and to Hold, I really did that. That was really just as a memorial to Nanette, because she loved reading, just could not stop reading, and I just wanted to, and I thought, she can't write a book now, but I can certainly capture all the events of what have happened and how we met and our lives as well, and what some of the legacies that happened afterwards were. So it started from there, and then I found that after I finished that, it sort of whet my appetite, and then I started writing things down. So that's sort of really where that really evolved, because I'd keep writing things down, or I'd have a conversation with someone, which was maybe about death or just about life, really. It's interesting because we teach our kids about the birds and the bees and about what happens, but we rarely have a conversation about what happens at the end of life. How do we deal? Do we want to be buried? Where do you think we go? All those sort of questions. So, and there was a lot of positive affirmations in that book, which I used to have on my wall or on my fridge. So I found that they would help me saying those things each day or just reading them. So and it's just sort of continued from there.
So what then inspired you to create Letters of Love?
Well, I wanted, obviously, in the 20th anniversary, which was 2016, I wanted to have a lasting memorial. Obviously, we had services. There was a service in Port Arthur. We had a large one in Melbourne at Federation Square. But I wanted it to be something that was tangible, that people could actually, take away and be inspired by, in all different ways. So the idea was, really, it stemmed from Alannah's pictures. I had a lot of drawings that she'd done at school and at home, and in all those letters there was the recurring theme was always love. It was always, my mum and dad love me, I love my sister, and even our logo, which is me and sister, and she's holding a sister's hand. So I thought, look, there's no reason why. I've got, the ideas there. It's just really have to spring into action and get it happening. So once I had the idea, I wrote a short brief about what we wanted. So the thing was, when we talk about letters of love, I said in the brief that it doesn't necessarily need to mean love in the sense of loving another person. It can be loving things that what is really meaningful to you in your life. It might be reading, it might be your job, it might be whatever. So, and what I really like about this book is that it's delivered on a diversity of what people have written their letters to. So I love the fact that Bob Brown has written his to the environment. It's just so, it encapsulates what he is, what he's stood for all his life. And there's many like that where, or they've talked, I think it's Cameron Daddo talks about writing a letter to himself when he's 80 and about not being too grumpy and about enjoying the journey. Because I like reading stuff like that, because then I go, if I find myself being a bit grumpy or just a bit short with people, you just have to take yourself off for a minute and go reset and try and go again. Because it is easy to be annoyed with day-to-day things and traffic and the hustle and bustle, but if we put it in perspective and you look at how lucky we are, the fact that most of us have got a house, we've got all the things that make us fairly comfortable, that we are pretty lucky.
There's 50. How many? I mean, was it hard to get the 50, or did you get inundated? Or
well, it's interesting. I made a list, and I made the list quite diverse. So I had from people like artists, musicians, some politicians. I made it very broad. We were pretty right on getting it. I really like Jimmy Barnes's in there too, where he talks about. I mean, his life has been. For some of you may have read his Working Class Boy, and Working Class Man, I think, is about to come out. And his life in his early days was traumatic. He talks about as an 8-year-old that it was much safer for him to go and leave the house in the middle of the night and go down the street or go to the park or other places. So these days it's considered the other way around, but it was so violent and there was so much drinking and things going on that was the case. So, and the fact that music is what's been the gel that's held him together over that period of time, to the point where he's been able to, well, not necessarily conquer the demons, but certainly be at peace and be at one with what happened in his upbringing.
What I liked too was how many men had written letters and had really worked on their emotions and were really quite open and honest, So, did any of them take you by surprise?
They did. In fact, I think the first one that I read made me cry, and it was Justice Michael Kirby, and he talked about meeting his male partner in King's Cross in 1969, and about that journey, and they're still together now, and. The tears were really flowing, and I thought, and I knew at that moment that was the first letter we got, that this is going to be fantastic, because if that's what we got first up, the rest of it's going to be good too. So that was good. So we talk about like people like Ron Barassi. I really liked his. It's very short and sweet, but he says, "Dad, something like, Dad, I really miss you, and I'm sorry I haven't come to see you for a long time." And of course, his dad died in Tobruk in Egypt, and or in the Middle East, and just the way he said that, and was really touching, and really, I felt that quite emotional with that. And then and then there's ones that are more educational, like Rex Hunt, where he talks about his dad teaching him to fish, about giving him. I think he talks about something like a little bamboo stick or something that his dad gave him. That was his first fishing rod. So, there's lots of little gems in there. And sometimes when you go back and read it the next time or the one after, you sort of pick up other bits that you don't necessarily pick up the first time around.
Definitely. Did any take you by surprise? Like for the person who put it, were you just really surprised at that?
I think people surprise you all the time. Yeah. none specifically, but you look at people have obviously taken a lot of time and effort. One of the funny things that did happen as we were about to go to print is I had this letter, an overseas letter from France, and I looked at it, I opened it up, and it was from Tina Arena saying, can I still contribute to the book? Because I really would love to. And I had to say, look, I reckon we might do another one, and we'd love you to be involved, because we'd pretty well, it was ready to go. So things like that, and also actually Steve Iser as well said, I've just found this invitation, look, it was 15 months on. Is it, can I contribute? I said, sorry, it's done. So, but I think when you look at what they've written, there's a lot of thought, a lot of time, and particularly a lot of thought, and the fact that they have shared their emotions is the important thing for me. That they're happy to be honest in a public forum.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I loved the cover. Can you tell us a little bit about the cover?
Yeah, well, I've taken inspiration from Alannah all the way through. So to happen to hold had her drawings on it. This has got her drawings on it on the front here, and that heart came off one of her pictures, many pictures that we've got in the archives at the foundation. So yeah, and I think the red and white looks really fitting.
It does. Perfect for Library Day too, isn't it? Library Lovers Day. Walter, you've also got a letter in the book, and it's quite humbly placed at right near the end. Can you share with us about your letter?
Yes. Well, mine's to my mum and dad, and they're. I have to say, I'm very proud of them. I really feel pretty privileged that they're my parents. And that's not because they're perfect, but because of what they've had to endure themselves. My mum, they both grew up at the end of the Second World War. Mum's parents, her dad died in the war when she was 3. Her mum passed away when she was 8, along with 2 other siblings, and there was 4 siblings left to look after themselves. And they went away to migrant camp. The same with my dad. Came out here with just their suitcases, and have been able to really create a fantastic life for us. I mean, myself and my brothers, we've all been to university. We've, whilst we didn't have much in the early days, we've been exceptionally lucky in what we've had in family life, and things that we're going away and doing things all together. So the thing is, as your parents get older, you realise that time is limited, and I thought there's no time like right now to write that letter of acknowledgement to them, and say those things, because it's interesting. One of the big things that people have conflict in their life is when they haven't told their parents how they feel about something, or their partner, or their ex-partner, or someone they've had an issue with. And when you actually share that and get it out there, it's like it frees you. It frees you to of that feeling and that the heaviness of that. So for me to actually be able to share that, and I actually read it at our Starry Night event a year and a bit ago, and I was really happy to be able to just say thank you to them, and to say, look, I know that there's been problems, there's been issues, but you've hung in there, and you've been able to show me that if you hang in there, that you can conquer things, with the right help.
Fantastic. You said you might be publishing or thinking of writing another Letters of Love, but are there any other grand plans in the pipeline? I can see that you think big.
Look, there's always. I am a bit of a projects person. I think another book would be great. It might be letters. It may be just a continuation. One of the other things is I really like to do a music project where we get some prominent artists to maybe record songs that for the as a fundraising thing, and something that's going to help the community as well as an event.
Sounds like you've got Tina Arena lined up.
Hopefully. Hopefully. Yeah.
Fantastic. I guess, how I also see you is that you're very motivational. You give a lot of great public speeches and you really get around. But what inspires you? When I think of Library Lovers Day, we talk about books, but do you actually read inspirational material yourself? What motivates
Yeah, I do
that?
I do look for that. I really like autobiographies, which and reading about people who have success stories, I suppose, and not only success stories, but all the phases that people went through to get there. I was like, just for example, my Dyson vacuum cleaner packed it up, and I rang up yesterday, and on the little recording is they're talking about John. I think it's John, the founder. So he built they said 5,551 prototypes before he got it right. And yet, but what he created was this amazing machine that the one that I just rang up about was 19 years old, still going strong. But the hose are broken, and they've given up making parts for it. But I really like stories where people have had to fight adversity, or So one of the earliest things I read, and it did help me a lot in the early days, was Viktor Frankl's book that he wrote in a concentration camp. So I think it's A Search for Meaning. And
it's a classic.
Yeah, and there's a few lines in there, and I kept grabbing onto those and thinking, look, if this person can survive in this situation, then I've just got to hold on in there and hope that tomorrow's going to be a bit better. That next week something will happen that will want you to keep going to next week or to next year, and things that will get better. And I think certainly I found having new experiences like travelling or going was a big thing in having new memories, having things that you do that you hold on to, and obviously writing the book, remembering all those old ones and recording them was a really good project at the time.
Are you too busy to be reading at the moment? Because my next question was, what are you currently reading?
It depends. If I find something that's really inspirational, I'll try and read it. Particularly I like travel because I'm enforced to switch off mode, and I'll sit there and read a whole book. Or I like talking books as well. So I've got Andre Agassi's book on as a talking book, and I've had that for quite a few years, and I still like listening to that because there's a lot of things in there that's where he talks about not loving tennis, and about how he actually says, I hate tennis, and I have hated tennis pretty well from when my dad first built that ball machine that used to fire at him called the Dragon, and it's really interesting read, where he talks about that. But then when later in life, when he discovered that that was his gift. The gift was that he was an incredible tennis player, that he could see the ball much earlier than most of the other players and be closer to the serve, purely as a result of what his dad did in his training. That he thought, I'm going to use this now. At least I'm using it because I want to use it, not because my dad wants me to do it or anyone else. So things like books like that, and it's very funny as well. And he talks about his days when he got his new car, and he got booked I think 3 times going to the one tournament. Because a Chevy Corvette or something, and he got booked doing 50 over the speed limit. And in the end, I think they said the police actually drove him to the event, something like that, because they said you can't drive anymore, you've lost your license. So things like that, which give inspiration, but have they're real stories where sometimes those real stories they're almost too hard to fathom that someone could go through that.
Very much so. Walter, we're nearly at the end of our podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I would really like to thank yourself, Deborah, and Logan Council for organising for me to come here and share about the Letters of Love and about the foundation and the work that we do. I think I think last week we had the Premier of Queensland talk about the need for having the eSmart schools in there, eSmart in all the schools in Queensland. So hopefully that eventuates, which would be an incredible thing because it's a big state. And yeah, I just encourage people if they want something that's a bit uplifting, that both these two books are a great present to give someone who may be struggling or is in need of a little bit of an uplift.
Thank you, Walter. On behalf of Logan City Council Libraries, I'd like to thank Walter Mikac for joining us today. Can I also remind everyone that you can visit the Logan City Council Libraries website to hear other recordings featuring thought-provoking conversations with interesting people. Thank you also to our audience for joining us for this special event. Now what we're going to try and do is some Q&A. So if anyone wants to ask a question, I'll repeat that question just so that we can record. And of course, Walter will try his best to answer. Has anyone got a question? Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to know why you're basing the eSmart around grade 6.
The question is, why is the eSmart program based around grade 6?
Well, the research that was done when it was set up is that, and that's probably now about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago in its planning, is that was where, right at the point where kids are becoming aware of their surroundings, of the outside world, about, being inquisitive about things like, other people, about sex, about issues like that. But the push at the moment actually has been to try and run that further back, because you now got 3 and 4 year olds running, who have got a screen. So it's really, we've had discussions with the federal government about running it in preschools, or at least some sort of precursor program, so that there is an awareness that, and some of the filters are put in place so that a child can't just grab their parent's phone if it's not locked and find themselves on a porn site. Or when they're looking up maybe cat, or they're looking up any word, really just about any word. It's just so there's and parents and also sometimes not aware about their own devices. It was interesting. I did a presentation to the AFP in Canberra in September last year, and some of the things that have happened as a result of parents allowing their kids to record themselves with their phone. So these 2 young girls, I think the story was vaguely, these 2 young girls who were maybe 2 and 4 had recorded themselves dancing and running around the home, maybe in their knickers or naked, and somehow that video had got out, been posted on Instagram or somewhere. Was it because they'd seen mum, they knew how to do it, and posted it? And so while that was out, that was accessible to other people and could be recorded. So again, if the unbelievable power of the internet can also have really bad ramifications on the flip side. Yeah, well, we definitely need to get that education happening to a younger age, because the circumstances. It's like I talked about the evolution of the foundation, how you wouldn't anticipate that this is what we'd be doing 20 years on, but it's really is the most pressing problem for our kids right now.
So the question is the relationship of the Alannah and Madeline Foundation with other organisations such as Braveheart and the Daniel Morecambe Foundation. Is there any communication between the other organisations?
On a day-to-day basis, I don't think so, but certainly we welcome help and are willing to communicate and offer our services, or some of the things that we do to other organisations. Yeah, I've looked at the Morecambes and what they do, and I feel like if I saw them, I just want to be on my knees and just shake their hands and say, I don't know how you do it day in, day out. But obviously they're driven by the loss of their son. And I would actually love to meet them, because so they're the sort of things the sort of people that I look at and go, if they can keep going, I'm certainly going to do my very best. So the foundation, we're always looking for synergies and things like that. We were very close to merging with Save the Children Victoria because we're always looking at trying to make it more efficient. About 6 or 7 years ago, but unfortunately they didn't want to give up their name, and we got close, but it didn't happen. So, but obviously it's our main. We would love for us to not have to help children who get taken out of their home because of domestic violence. And that's one of the other programs. We've got our Buddy Backpack program. So if they do get taken out, they get given a little backpack with all the personal effects, like a toothbrush, a comb, pyjamas, knickers, a teddy bear, a book, all those sort of things. So, so we certainly we're certainly inclusive and love to be able to do what we can. At the moment, we've had some communication with Dolly Everett's parents, and they want to set up some sort of tribute to her. So there has been a bit of communication in regard to that.
The question is that we hear a lot about the victims of bullying today, but what is the mindset of the actual perpetrator that makes them, and what sort of people do they become?
So I mean, personally, I think that people who are bullying, it's usually as a result of things that are happening to them that are not good. They're either being, either they're being mistreated, and not in all cases, but sometimes it just happens that it's but often it is a reflection of what they're going through, and it's much easier to do it by tapping it on a computer or on your phone, because you're away, you're safe. If you went and did that something, when I was a kid in the playground, you'd go up to the person and you'd push them, or you'd do things to them now, or as I used to do in classes. I had this girl that I had to sit next to because I was naughty, and I kept nudging her and giving her little kicks in the shin, and when the principal found out, I managed to get the cuts when I was, I think, in grade 2. So, but that's why it's important to try and to find that the perpetrator to be given some counselling, or to at least to be able to stop that, because if it's not stopped, it's sort of like they get some satisfaction with the fact that they've upset someone else. So maybe I've been upset, I'm feeling like I'm left out, or I'm lonely, or whatever the situation is, and they've sort of been able to deflect it onto someone else and make them feel bad, or so it's a case of breaking that cycle, really. It's the same with domestic violence. You see it happening, often repeated generation after generation. Sometimes it's improved and there's steps taken, and then you see improvements. So it's really important to try and get to stop them from doing it, and also identify the reasons and to help them.
Walter, have you ever been asked to contribute to the gun control debate in the United States?
I've had a lot of people in Australia suggest that it would be a good idea. I have got a friend who, Rebecca Peters, who was involved with the Coalition for Gun Control in Australia. She now runs an organisation in Guatemala that helps victims of gun violence. She regularly goes to the United Nations and talks about gun violence, and about there's been offers to go and do that. I've resisted up to this point, because it does feel like it's not going to happen there. I mean, you have Sandy Hook, and you've got 24 children killed, and they can't get any. It's not like they could even get they can't even get background checks on licenses. Anyone can go and get one. You can go and buy, and there's ways of getting around it, even if you did, because people buy them at swap meetings. So, and it's so ingrained in their thinking that that I need to have a gun, and I think the number one thing is the fear factor of the gun lobby saying to the people, like, you need to have a gun to protect yourself from other people who've got a gun. And running campaigns like, for instance, they have a campaign a few years ago where you buy your daughter, a 13-year-old daughter, a pink rifle as their perfect way into adulthood. When you have that sort of mentality about violence and about how you protect yourself and about how rather than looking at, say, somewhere like Japan where guns are nearly non-existent and their rate of I think the number of deaths by firearm a year are less than 100 of a massive population. So you've got to look to those sort of places to get inspiration. So I'd be willing to go and do that, but I do, looking at it over 20 years' time, and the fact that their mass shootings happen averaging over one a day now. So last year it was about 400. So over one a day. So it's hard to see that being pared back and changing a lot.
Walter, do you think the gun laws here in Australia are strong enough, as there appears that there are loopholes?
I think as the legislation happened originally, it was fantastic, because what had happened was the Coalition for Gun Control had actually prepared world's best legislation as a document to be produced, to be presented at the Parliament in New South Wales, I think in about 1995, and it got voted against, obviously, at that point. So it was sitting there ready to go, and when John Howard decided that, look, we don't want to go down this path, we need to do something right here, right now, and that was enacted. It was pretty strong. They banned all semi-automatic firearms. I think it probably could have gone a little bit further and maybe included handguns as well, because it's not like we need those walking down the street either. And what's happened over that period of time, again, there's been more parties from, more members of Parliament from the Shooters Party, which is particularly the case in New South Wales. I think there's 2 members in the upper house, in the Senate. And, that's led to some changes where they have actually requesting shooting in national parks, which I don't think has been passed yet. But, they're always pushing the envelope to try and get concessions. So I think the fact that, and we had the issue with the Adler rifle last year, and I think that has the capacity to do 5 shots, and then within no time, in fact, there were already, even before it came out, there was magazines which could increase that to 15, 20, or it was really the capacity of it could have been. So for the government to have voted to make that specific use, like that category C, not just available to the general population, was a really good thing, because we just don't need it. I mean, you look at what's happened after it. We've had no mass shootings in that period of time. I mean, it's I hope that continues, because it's just an amazing statistic. And our death from firearms has gone down by about 50% as well. So, the fact that our kids can be a lot safer. That they don't go to university thinking I need to get down if I hear noises. In the classroom, they have to think about drills for putting on bulletproof vests, things like that. So it's a completely different mindset, I think, here, as far as violence goes. So if we've achieved that, then that's where we're heading in the right direction.
Walter and our wonderful audience, thank you for joining us today for this special Library Lovers Day event. Letters of Love is really about people giving messages of love out into the Australian public, and I thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of those stories.